A very warm good morning to all of you. Dear students, once again I would like to welcome all of you to a new session of the history class. Today we are going to begin with a new chapter from history, chapter number 13, United Nations, part 1. Here we are going to study about the United Nations. We have already studied about United Nations in our law classes. But here we are going to study something in detail about United Nations. So before we move to the chapter, let's have a general idea about why United Nations formed or how it happened. What were the different reasons? There were two world wars within 25 years. We have already studied about the First and Second World Wars. And the entire world witnessed the consequences, the destructions and the different impacts of the two different world wars. All the nations faced in one way or another way its consequences. So the nations, especially the powerful nations, they came to know or they started to think. They realized that if there is a third world war or if a third world war take place in the world, it will be the end of humanity of the earth. So they decided to establish a powerful organization which can stop the entire world from a third world war. And one of the main reasons behind the emergence or behind the formation of this organization was because of the failure of League of Nations. After the First World War, the powerful nations set up an organization with the title League of Nations, but it was not enough to stop the world from the Second World War. So they realized that there must be a powerful organization which can stop the entire world from a third world war. As a result, the powerful countries like America, who was the president of America during that time, it was Roosevelt. Then again, the Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill, was the Prime Minister of Britain during that time. So these leaders, along with the other powerful nations, they have studied and discussed about the different situation of the world. They have made a final draft of an organization which can effectively function to stop the world from a third world war. As a result, by 1945 June, the first session of the first meeting of United Nations took place at San Francisco. So in the first session, 50 nations, they have signed the terms and conditions of the United Nations. As a result, when 50 nations or the representatives from different 50 nations, when they have signed the treaty, by 1945 October 24, exactly after 3 months of the San Francisco session, by 1945 October 24, United Nations came into force. It started to function. That's why October 24 is being celebrated as United Nations Day throughout the world. United Nations has got some objectives. First of all, disarm. There must not be a rush for making different weapons. A nation should not focus only on making arms and its dealings. Second one, decolonize. India was a colony of Britain. So the countries which are having different colonies should return those colonies to their own people. Decolonize. Third one, develop. Organization must be focusing on development of the nations, and developments in the nation will lead the entire world to a developed state. So disarm, decolonize, develop. And here we are going to see the other main objectives of the United Nations. First of all, maintain international peace and security. So the organization must be focusing on international peace and security. What all problems are being emerged between the nations or among the nations or in one nation itself, it will be dealing with United Nations, especially the problems between different countries. If there is an internal problem in a country, they won't get involved in those cases. But in certain cases they can, but not in all the cases. So maintaining international peace and security. Second one, develop friendly relations among the nations. There should not be any threat which can lead to a problematic situation. The nations must be in a friendly atmosphere. The relation between the nations must be in a very good atmosphere. Otherwise, it can lead to a third world war. Third one, achieve international cooperation in solving the problems. Suppose if there is a problem between two countries, United Nations will be getting the support of other nations in order to solve the problems. Achieve international cooperation in solving the problems between two nations or a group of nations. Next one, to be a center for harmonizing actions of nations. So it has to function as an organization, as an agency for harmonizing actions of nations. If some actions of some nations, if it is hurting the other nations, there the United Nations will be functioning as a mediator. So to become a medium for solving the problems between the nations. So these are the main objectives of United Nations. Now we are going to see the different principles of United Nations. United Nations following certain policies in their activities. First of all, respect the sovereign authority of its members. So the nations who are signing the treaty, who are agreeing with the terms and conditions of the United Nations, respect the sovereignty authority of its members. Second one, all members to fulfill the obligations given to them. If United Nations is asking a help from a particular country, the country has to fulfill it. If United Nations is asking a help from India or from America or from Britain or from Japan or Germany, any nation, if that country is a member of United Nations, it has to fulfill the demand or the help asked by the United Nations. Third one, settle disputes by peaceful means. According to United Nations, war is not a solution to all the problems or any of the problems. In order to solve a problem, war is not a solution. So settle problems by peaceful means, either by discussion or by some kinds of compensation or any other peaceful manners. Fourth one, refrain from the threat or use of force against any state. Refrain means stay away or not going for any kind of threat. So United Nations will never threat a state, or they will never force any state to do something. If they wish, they can. But the other nations, we have already seen, international cooperation will be functioning there. So if United Nations is saying no to something, if a country is doing something wrong, and if the United Nations is saying no to them, they can accept, or they may expect, or they may deny it. Both the possibilities are there, because they won't use force. But if that country is not following the instruction of the United Nations, they will use some other means to stop them. But they won't use force. Fifth one, should give UN every assistance for every action. So if United Nations is beginning an operation to solve a problem, all the members should give apt support or assistance to the United Nations. Sixth one, the states that are not members of it must act according to these principles. And finally, UN not to intervene in the domestic affairs of any state. They won't get involved in any internal problems of a country. They may criticize, but they may not involve in any of the cases. UN not to intervene in the domestic affairs of any state. So these are the different principles followed by United Nations. So dear students, I hope that the first part of this chapter is clear to you. Just go through the points once again and try to understand all the points, and it will help you to understand the rest of the parts of this chapter very well. So with this we are winding up today's class, and the next class we are going to see one of the organs of the United Nations, that is General Assembly. So we will discuss about General Assembly in the next class. Till then, I would like to sign off. Thank you.